Hey people, it's Steel Gamer, and I'm going to be going over something I found really annoying in the Assassin martial arts section of Diablo 2 Resurrected. Now, unfortunately, the original topic that somebody linked me to about this problem is no longer on the forum. It was deleted, which means the person was probably banned, and it's the usual, in typical forum behavior from people when they want to get rid of something. As I was reading through this, nothing was answered. People were playing games. They were lying. They were making shit up that they were adding wording to these things that don't even exist. And to help you understand this, I'm going to first start by going with Phoenix Strike, because that's what this is, going over Phoenix Strike, because that's what this mainly revolves around, and then working my way backwards to help you understand something. I'll also be using another character's skills, a paladin skill, the smite and holy shield, to give an example of what exactly going on here to show you the comparison. And I'll be using the exact example that somebody says, hotkeying Phoenix Strike to F8, so you'll hear me say that. Now that that's out of the way, there's so much into this. Let me begin by first explaining whoever designed this in the game, in the original Diablo 2, then in the remake, which was pulled into the remake, and then on top of that, the Diablo 2 Resurrected should have been fucking fired. This is such a mess. People have no idea what they're talking about, and this literally cannot work the way it's set up. So let me explain, and let's start by reading Phoenix Strike. Alright, so, first of all, Phoenix Strike, I refuse to call this skills. I'm going to call these abilities. I'm going to call this attacks and skills, and this attacks and skills, but I refuse to call anything in this middle a skill. It's an ability that has an effect that happens. Okay? So let's read this and break this down so you can understand this. Phoenix Strike is an ability that generates elemental effects. It either does fire, lightning, or ice damage. That's it. This doesn't do a fourth ability. Okay? Now, what's interesting and why I say that about this is because it uses something called charges, which are generated from the right skills, which means you do something and a charge is then put here. Now, in order to activate or get that elemental effect, you have to use something in the right tree here. Now, it doesn't state which of these pulls it and which of these puts it on. It just says you need to use something from here to get a charge, to get an effect, and then you need something from here to pull that effect off. This middle tree, nowhere on it, can generate its own effects, and you can't use itself, which means this middle tree is desolate. It's dormant. It does nothing. It does nothing until something from the right tree is done, and then something from the left tree happens. But where people are lying is they're literally stating that they are using Phoenix Strike itself, which is a false statement. You cannot use Phoenix Strike because it's not one of the abilities on this skill. It's not something that this thing can generate. This thing either generates fire, lightning, or ice. It does nowhere on it state, if there are no charges on it from the right side, you can hotkey it to F8, press F8, and get a charge on it. That doesn't state that. Yet people are saying they are doing this. If you can use Phoenix Strike, then you wouldn't need anything from here because you could only use this. That's what the definition of that means. And I'm emphasizing it this way, and I'm talking like I'm a fucking idiot because that's how these people need to be talked to. They are literally saying something that is not true. They are saying they're doing something that's not true. They added wording to this that doesn't exist. Phoenix Strike cannot be used. You have to use something from the right tree to put something on Phoenix Strike, and then something from the left tree to take it off. You cannot use itself to do anything to itself or from itself or get an effect of it. It says right there you have to use a dragon attack to pull the effect from it. But this dragon attack can only pull it if there's a fucking charge on it. I don't know where people are getting that you can just press this and without any charges on it and have something happen. That would be the equivalency of hotkeying the Paladin's Holy Shield to F8, not equipping a shield, pressing F8, and then somehow getting the effect of Holy Shield. Holy Shield requires you to equip a shield on the Paladin, so that way when you press the hotkey interacts with the actual thing that's there and gets it. Without a shield, you can press F8 till you're blue in the face. Nothing's going to happen. In that regard, without charges, you can hotkey this F8 all you want. Pressing it's not going to do anything until there's a charge on it. Trying to say you can press it without a charge on it is bullshit, because it only does anything if there are charges on it. Without a charge, you're not generating anything off of it. Nothing's happening. That brings me to the following problem here. All right. First, in order to get to Phoenix Strike, you have to go through Tiger Strike and Cobra Strike. I'm not talking about the prerequisites. You need to go through this line as well, but I'm talking about the middle section here. The problem with this middle section is, once you unlock Phoenix Strike, now you have a conundrum where you have 3 separate things in a middle line that cannot do anything on their own, which requires something from the right and the left to activate and use, or get the effect from. Now you have a problem because the right side, when a charge is generated, this right side is not connected to any specific middle section, and neither is the left side. For example, Fist of Fire. If you do that, it's going to it's going to generate a charge. It doesn't state it generates a charge for Tiger Strike, Cobra Strike, or Phoenix Strike. It just says it generates a charge, which means this middle section, if all 3 of them are unlocked, is going to put a charge for each one of them. A charge is going to go to Tiger Strike, a charge is going to go to Cobra Strike, and a charge is going to go to Phoenix Strike. I'm not going to sit there and have people argue with me that they use Fist of Fire and only put a charge on Phoenix Strike. No, it doesn't state that. If it said that, then yeah, that would make perfect sense. But this is literally impossible to do. You cannot generate a charge from here and dictate where it's going to go. If all 3 of them, it's going to go wherever there's an unlocked. So if 2 of them are unlocked, it goes there. That's fine. That's common sense. But once you have 2 or 3 of them unlocked, trying to dictate where a charge goes is bullshit. Because that reverts me back to stating, in order for you to dictate where this is going, you would have to be able to hotkey Phoenix Strike to F8 and press F8 to get a direct connection to where you want the charge to go. But you cannot do that, because nowhere in it can you use this. Because the only thing that this is good for is pulling charges off of it for an elemental effect. It's not good for putting charges on it. It's not good for targeting charges. It's good for if it only has charges on it. That is the only thing this thing does. I don't know where people are getting that they can somehow use Phoenix Strike. No. Phoenix Strike can only be used if there are charges on it. And you can't put a charge on it by hotkeying to F8 and pressing it to get a charge on it. That's not what this does. Pressing it without charges on it is not going to do anything, because it's not one of the things it can do. As you can see on the screen, it only does one of 3 things. If it has a charge on it, it's going to do fire damage. If it has 2 charges on it, it's going to do lightning damage. If it has 3 charges on it, it's going to do ice bolt damage. Where the fuck are people getting that if it has no charges on it, you can somehow press it and get a charge on it? No. Pressing it without charges on it is going to result in the same thing as trying to activate Holy Shield without a shield. It's not going to end in it. It's not going to give you a result. So I don't want to hear people saying, yo, I pressed this to put a charge on it. No, you didn't. Now, that brings me to the next thing. The dragon attacks do not specifically state they pull any of the charges from any specific place. So to argue you're using Phoenix Strike with Dragon Talon is a lie, because nowhere does it state Dragon Talon only pulls its charges from Phoenix Strike. It doesn't state that. If you can regenerate, the only way you could use this is going to do nothing. You're using Dragon. You're not using Phoenix Strike. So I don't know where people are getting the fact that I use Phoenix Strike. No, you don't. You can't use this. This puts charges on it. This takes them off. You can't, without charges on this does nothing. And you can't press it without anything on it. Even if you could, that wouldn't matter, because now this is where this comes in. The reason why I'm saying you're not using Phoenix Strike is because there's no way to use Dragon to get a charge directly off of Phoenix Strike, because in order to do that, you would have to activate Phoenix Strike. You have to activate it, not something that's putting charges on it, or not something taking off. You literally have to hotkey Phoenix Strike and press F8 to get, and then say I'm pressing F8 to make sure Dragon uses. No, because if that were the case, you pressing, hotkeying Phoenix Strike to F8 means if you could press F8 to activate it so Dragon Talon pulls that off of there, then you wouldn't need Dragon Talon. You could just press F8 to activate it. You cannot. Those skills never see themselves. They require left and right. They do not use the middle. And it is unfucking believable that people are saying they are somehow activating, hotkeying this, pressing a hotkey, and without, first of all, getting an effect without having charges on it, and secondly, stating that pressing it puts a charge on itself. That's bullshit. If it has no charges, how the hell are you going to press it and get an effect off of it when, first of all, the effect that people are saying that they're putting on it doesn't even exist, and secondly, saying you're pressing it and then saying you still need Dragon. If you can use the, if you can press this and get an effect on it without having a charge on it, then you don't need Dragon. I'm not going to sit and argue with people. If you need Dragon, then nobody's going to sit there and say that you can press it without charges on it to put a charge on itself when that's not even written in the damn thing here. So again, just to reiterate, once you unlock Phoenix Strike, the game generates a charge for each ability. Then, once that ability has a charge on it, there's no way to control which charge is coming off of which ability. In order to do that, these attacks would have to explicitly state where they pull the charge from. Dragon Tail does not state it only pulls a charge from Cobra Strike. It doesn't state it only pulls a charge from Phoenix Strike. It doesn't state any of that. It just states that when these have charges, when the charge is made, a charge is put on these, and then a charge is pulled off when you use this. Anybody dictating that they have control over this is fucking lying. Because again, if that's the case, this is an impossibility. Because in order to make sure Dragon Talon uses Phoenix Strike, you would have to be able to activate Phoenix Strike. If there's a charge on Phoenix Strike and you activate Phoenix Strike to make sure Dragon uses it, then you wouldn't need Dragon. You could just press this to activate it. But if you need Dragon, then that means you can't press this even when there are charges on it, because there's no way to directly connect this to this. You can't put, these are just there. Hotkeying them does nothing, and you can't control which one of these are there. Whoever designed this needs to be fucking fired, and people that say they're doing stuff with this is full of shit, because they have no control over this. I literally just laid it out. We read it on the screen, and I'm not going to sit and argue with people who are adding sentences into these things in additional bonuses that aren't there. Stop saying you can put a charge on this by activating this, and then trying to use in the same argument you still need Dragon to get the ability off of this, because that's a contradiction. You can't have this putting a charge on itself and then say you still need Dragon to pull the effect of this off, because what you're literally just stating is that pressing this without a charge is the fourth thing it does. It would literally have to say, if there were no charges on this, press activate Phoenix Strike to put a charge on it. I'm not gonna sit and argue with fucking people. This is the dumbest fucking thing, and whoever designed this needs to be fucking, should have been fired. This never should have got out in this case. It's fucking stupid. Anyway, just wanted to get that out of the way. Steel Gamer signing out. Have a good one.